Hello everybody. This video is going to be about setting item level permissions in a library based off a column setting. Like what I'm going to do is I have my library right here that's got document sets in it, and we're going to use the category column to determine what permission gets applied to it. As you can see, there's A, B, C, and D. Okay. A is for the leadership group. I made 4 groups, one for each letter. Okay, so the category A represents, the document's leadership group. B represents HR, C represents logistics, and D represents operations. Okay, and the way we're going to set these, now these would be easy just to do just one at a time, but say you have thousands or tens of thousands of items in a library, you're not going to want to go through and go through 10,000 individual items and go through and set individual permissions. Okay, and the only time you're going to do this is if you have like PII or something like that where it needs to be locked down by individual stuff. This way you can set a column and run your flow in Power Automate to set your permissions. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is I set up this flow to run that triggers up Power Apps just for the ease of stuff. Okay, now going through this, I have 2 variables. One's for the site address, so like the site URL is going to get stored in this variable right here. Okay. The library name, the display name of the library is going to be stored here, and we're going to use it later on. Now there's 2 steps in here that you have to manually select what library you're doing before you start it, because otherwise you'll lose the metadata that's needed for steps downstream. Okay, the first one is get files. As you can see, I put the whole name in here along with the library. Okay, so since we're doing FY21 a metal PVC library, I'm going to set that in here. Okay, now if you want to restrict which ones gets pulled in, this creates a table, okay, or an array. Okay, you can actually come in here into filter query and specify what items you want to bring in. Okay, it's an OData filter. Okay, which means you're going to have to use the internal name of the column, and then you're going to use like EQ for equal or NE for not equal, GT for greater than, GL for LT for less than, so on and so forth. As you can see here, it kind of gives you some examples here. And then what I'm doing is, since this is an array or a table or whatever you want to call it, it has to apply one item at a time. So since we got that, we have to use apply to each step. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make sure all the files are checked in, right? One file at a time. So it looks at this property and see if it's true. Because this property right here it's called checked out. If that's equal to true, it's going to check in the file. If it's not, it's just going to go on the no side and continue down the tree. So over here, I can use the 2 variables that I had up here to put in site address and library so everything stays dynamic. This is the one step it can't be dynamic, or it's not gonna, it's gonna mess it up downstream. Okay. So the next step it's gonna do, it's gonna force inheritance of the column data. Okay. In document sets, if you do not turn on if you do not turn on the inheritance, it won't the column data will not inherit down, okay, and you have to do that. So what this does is as it writes the title information, it just puts the name of the file or name of the folder in there, just so if something changes, to put it in a modified state, which will make it inherit from the folder. But you have to do that ahead of time, okay? And then we're going to force it to re-inherit to the parent folder, so it'll basically reset the permissions to whatever the folder is, the file will, okay? And then you're going to set, down here is where you're going to set the permissions based off of, you know, it equals A, B, C, or D. And then in each step, which is all basically the same, we're going to use the variable of site address, the variable of library, and then we're going to use the ID of the get file step, and then we're going to set it, the group pertaining to what group name needs to go with that letter. Okay, so if you look at the difference between A and B, the only difference is the group. Okay. Okay, so that's how the flow works. Okay, you can set this part up anytime you need to in the process. I usually do it first just so I don't forget to do it, and then once you did it, once you set it, oh, also the forced inheritance, you got to do it this way too, because otherwise these column names won't be right. It's got to be hard coded into it, otherwise these won't work. Okay, so I'm going to change this documents to the FY21 library we're using. And once you're done, that's all you have to change. The rest can stay the same the way it is. Okay. I use the title column because there's a title column in every list and every library. So you don't have to worry about changing anything. And then once you're done, you hit save. Alright, so that's the library, or this is the flow portion of it. Okay. Next thing you need to do, now the next part you have to do next, or you can do it first, but it needs to be done before you go to the Power App. Okay, you need to go to your SharePoint list here, and you got to do three things. Okay, so we'll go into our settings. So library settings. First thing you're going to do is you're going to go into your versioning settings, and you're going to make sure that this setting right here, require documents to be checked out before they can be edited, is no. You do not want that, because if you change something, it's going to check it out, and then you can't do nothing with it until it's checked back in. And normally you can't automatically just check stuff in. You have to manually do it. So I always turn that off. So make sure it says no, and you hit save or hit OK. Next thing you're going to do, if you have document sets, you need to do this part. Okay, so you're going to click on your document set that you're using, and the column that you're using to set the permissions needs to be visible. Okay, so I'm using category, and you see it says optional. Okay, it can say anything you want it to say, except it cannot say hidden. Now, if it's not in here at all, you need to add it by going through add from existing site or list columns, and then add it, and then make sure it says optional. Optional at a minimum, okay? Because when you go into the document set settings to turn on the shared columns, it won't show up in the list. As you can see here, it's automatically checked. Okay, so we're good there. So just make sure your column that you're using for that thing, because you want that metadata to transfer from the file level down to the folder level down to the file level. Okay, automatically. Now, you should do this before you even start putting content in your library. Okay, now once you make sure the category is selected, or the column that you're using for your permissions is selected, you hit OK. But like I said, you want to do this before you even add content, but if it's not, that's why I had to write that into the flow, so that way it would force the inheritance of that column data down to the file level. Okay, so once you're done with that, you go back to settings. That's step number 2. And step number 3 is you want to set base permissions on your library, okay? Because you want, this is, when I say base permissions, I'm talking about the permissions of the document library at the library level. You want to set it to where if It's minimum level, right? It's always safe just to have owners there, okay? Because that locks it down to only owners, and typically there's going to be less than like 5 people usually. You know, there's not going to be a lot of owners on this thing because they have full control no matter what. Okay, so by default, you're going to have owners, members, visitors, and possibly everyone but external users in there. Okay, you don't want most of those people in there. Okay, you want to use just the owners. Okay, and that sets your base permissions. So like as you see here, now I've ran this flow on this thing, so it's got, you know, every item has its own permissions already. But when we run this, it fixes that, because remember, one of the steps is to re-inherit the permissions from the library. Okay, so it's going to basically break all the unique permissions as it goes through this process, and then of course it's going to re-break them to put the permissions that you need on here. Okay, so that's step 3. Okay, so once you do that, now we're ready to run the flow. Okay, and the way we run the flow is I created a Power App that does it. Okay, this is my Power App. Okay, there's 7 different libraries here, but we're only going to do this one right here. Okay, as you can see, why did it say? Oh, there's probably 27 items in it. Okay, so there's 27 items, but there's only 4 document sets. Okay, and based off those document sets is going to say what the permissions are on the file level. Okay, so what we do now is we select which library we want to do. So we hit the library. It's going to give you this checkout thing here. Okay, so those 3 steps I just told you are right here. Okay, and then once the flow is done, you got to go through and verify the permissions are correct. And then once they are, you click this button, and it'll add the number of items that you did and add it to the item completed. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to set these, because I know I did these. You'll see the initiate flow button is now active. Okay, if you turn these off, it's not. You can click this all day long and it ain't going to do anything. So we got to do all 3 steps first. Once it does that, it'll say, oh, okay, the flow is ready to go. So you hit initiate flow, and then it comes up. It goes, okay, it gives you a confirmation. Hey, we are going to this site address and to this library. Are you sure that's what you want to do? If you hit no, it will just close the window and doesn't do anything. But if you hit yes, it'll start the flow. So if we come in here and hit yes, it'll start it up. So let's go back to the flow. And what I do is I go in here and I watch it. Okay, so I bring up the history. See, it says running. It's not going to say running long because there's not that many items. Okay, you'll see that it already got through to get files property, and there's 27 items, just like my thing says, and it's running. So you can't go any deeper in this until it finishes. And 27 items should only take about a minute at the most. As you can see, it's counting out. It's probably the reason I created this library. Don't have that many items. I've done this with libraries up around 29,000 items. It takes a while. Alright, so it ran into a problem. Okay, so what I do is I hit next failed. I guess they all failed. Let me see here. Okay, I went ahead and troubleshot this and found out that the problem was not what I had in here, but what I had set for this thing. Okay, so you see, remember before it's a category / value. Well, I guess it's different in this library, so sometimes you gotta check this. Most of the time, if you use the same column for each file or for each library, it doesn't matter. But this time it did. So what I did is I removed the original thing and then clicked here and then looked down through my dynamic content and see if there were differences. Okay, it turns out that / didn't need to be in there. and that solved my problem. Okay, so if we go back into my run, now I did as a test, but it works the same with the Power App or not, because I use the same dynamic content, because you see I still got my site address, still got my library name, and then under the apply to each, under set permissions, you'll see that the first one was expression B, okay, which basically means the B step ran, and you'll see the rest are skipped because it doesn't apply. And then on that item, the documents-HR group got applied, okay, under ID number 4. If we come up here and do the next item, don't worry, I'm not going to go through all items, I just want to show you the difference. Okay, this one's B, we know that one works, let's find something that's different. Okay, here's C. As you can see, B didn't run this time, but C did. And C applied the documents-logistics group. Okay, so on and so forth. So now that we ran this, now we go through, we'll go back up here, and I'm going to check this. As you can see, it was each one of these was modified. See, there's no way, see, even 27 items I can't do in less than a minute. Okay, I might get 2 or 3 of them done in a minute, So this, even with 27 items, is still faster. And you can see the log over here. It actually did all this stuff over here. Look at all these different items it changed. All right, so let's look at here. So if we go to Manage Access on the first one, it says 2 groups there now instead of 1, right? I originally had just the owners. See, now I got owners and operation members, and since the category is D, that is the correct group. Okay. Now there's no items inside there, so I'm not going to worry about it. So let's go to the next one. So you go Manage Access. 2 groups, which is good. You got owners and HR members. Now remember, HR members was associated with the B option, right? And it's B. Okay. So let's close this, and now we're going to go inside this one because this does have an item in it. It's also B because I forced inheritance with that flow. And if you open up Manage Access, it's got 2 groups, owners and HR members. Now, sometimes it's inheriting from the folder. Okay, so if you go to Advanced Settings, you can't see it in the Manage Access, but in here you can. See, it says this document inherits permissions from its parent, B PBC 001, which is that folder that we opened first. Okay, which that's fine. It's probably because the properties are inheriting, so it turned inheriting on the file as well. Okay. Now you can do what you want with this here if you want to, but if you hit stop inheriting, it's still going to keep these 2 groups. Okay. So let's go back here to close this out, and let's go back up to our library. Now let's check the third one. You hit Manage Access. Now when you're checking these files, you don't have to check every one like I'm doing, but there's only 4, so I figured I'd just do all 4. Okay, so this has got 2 groups, owners and logistics. Since logistics goes with C, that's correct. Okay, and then if we open up this document set, it's got 5 files, which I'm obviously not going to check every one of them, but you can see it did touch each one of them. Okay, so let's just grab one. It's got 2 groups, owners and logistics, which that's what it should be. More likely the rest of them are correct. Okay. All right, and then let's go to the last one. It should be A, so that should be the leadership one, right? So if you come in here, you got 2 groups, owners, leadership. Okay, and if you open up the document, this got a bunch of them. So you go here. Manage Access, Groups, Leadership, Owners. So you see, this system does work. Okay, so now at this point, I would go back to my Power App. I would open this back up, and I would select this one to say it's done. Now see what it did when I clicked the 4th one? it added those 27 to the items completed, and it increased the percent complete to 8%. It was 4.1, I think, when before. And it actually tells you there's 665 items left that we need a mic to set the permissions on, and there's 723 total. Okay, and once you do that, you just hit the X to bring you back to the main scene, and now it shows green saying it's finished. Now, I don't know why it went black, but it should be orange. Maybe I need to look at that and see why I did that, but that's just a minor thing. That doesn't affect the operation of this system that I made. So, if anybody wants to know how I built this, you can put some comments in the thing, and I can build it. If you guys want me to make a video on how to construct this, it's not hard. This whole thing took me like a couple hours to build. The Power App took the longest, obviously, because I had to put a bunch of code in it to make it do things. But literally, all you have to do is the Power Automate's the whole heart and soul of this thing. I mean, if you want to just put in here, instead of doing triggering from Power Apps, you could put manually trigger and then make these, put these things in here and just manually put your stuff in here. And then the rest of this will work off of that. You can do that too. But making M365 groups are important. You can use SharePoint groups if you want to, but M365 groups are easy to manage because you can go in Outlook, right? So you go in, so if I open up my Outlook web, you have to be in the web to do this. A lot of times Outlook desktop app doesn't work like this, but you're going to go into your contacts, your people, and then you're going to select, if you make the groups, you're going to be the owner automatically. So if you can owner or member, it doesn't matter. It'll show your groups that you're part of, okay? Eventually. Come on. You can do it. All right, there we go. All right, so these are all the M365 groups I made so far. If you have a team or you just have a security group, it's going to still show up here. Okay, so the groups that I used for this, I'm not showing for some reason. That's odd. Okay, let's just start with documents. I don't understand why they're not showing, but documents. See, they're right there. Search form. Okay, here we go. So here are the 4 groups that I use. That's A, that's B, that's C, that's D. So if you open up leadership, you can see the groups here, and right now I'm the only member. I just didn't add anybody else. But you can add them in here, and you can go add members, and then you just type in, you can type in whatever you want. Okay, I'll view all members. Okay, but that's how you do it. You can add people if you want to do this. But yeah, these are the 4 groups. SharePoint groups you can't do that with. You have to go into SharePoint and you have to know where they're located and all this other stuff. And then you also have to be on the site. You have to be within the site collection of your document library in order to use that SharePoint group. So there's a lot of things that just doesn't work well. But if you're using Azure groups or M365 groups, it works better. And that's pretty much everything. Like I said, if you want me to build this for you, or you want me to walk you through how to build this, I'd be more than happy to do that. Just let me know. Just put it in the comments, and I will do that. As far as the coding of the app, there's not a lot. I think there's one formula in the whole thing. The rest of the stuff's out of the box actions. So let's go in here to edit. Let me show you real quick what I did. There's one HTTP call, and that's it. All right, get files is, like I said, it's pretty, just fill in the boxes, right? I don't ever use the filter query for anything unless I'm just trying to patch it. Like one of the, for some reason, I didn't see one of the conditions in there, and I only want to rerun those. You know, that's the only time you use a filter query. Otherwise, it's going to be blank most of the time. Okay. Checked out file is just a condition, and if there's an action called check in file, but you just put in there what you want. Forced inheritance, you know, all this is an update file properties. You know, I put the site, the library, the ID from the get files, and then what I want to fill in. Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory. This is the only HTTP call I'm doing, and it's just basically resetting the role inheritance. And it basically it's doing a get by title API call to the library, and then it's saying /items and ID of the item, and then /reset role inheritance. Okay, I'll put this formula right here for the HTTP call in the comments so you guys can have it. But I also got it in a comment in here, so when you're watching a video, you don't really need to look in the comments. It's right here. Okay, and then set permissions is just a switch command. I just renamed it. And then grant permissions is just site address, library, ID, the name of the group, whether it's view or edit, and whether it's the recipients get notified that that permission got added to that item. Okay, if you can put yes here, and then you can actually put a message here if you want to. I choose not to notify my people, and that's pretty much the whole thing. And that's everything. So if you like this video, like and subscribe, and leave a comment if you like. If you really like if you like this video, let me know. If you think I could have made it a little better for you, or went in more detail on certain things where I went in more detail than you didn't need, let me know as well. I'm fairly new at this, so I would really like some input if you guys want to give it, or feedback, positive or negative. It's all the same to me. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day.